Welcome back everyone to the weekly mailbox. You know the drill by now, it's your weekly chance to ask me questions about absolutely anything. We've had some bizarre ones in the past. Last week, they were pretty awesome. This week, we've got some real gems you've seen probably already by the title of the video. We're talking about Daniel Ricciardo, we're talking about 2021, new teams, drivers potentially making a comeback. We're talking about future sports. There's a hell of a lot, put it that way. We've got lots to talk about, lots to get through, and also, very kindly, Mercedes have sent me a bit of B-roll footage to be able to use in today's video and in future videos. So I'll be putting that in today's video in a later question, but keep an eye out in other videos. I might use a little bit more of it. So there's only a little sprinkling today, but thank you, Mercedes, for that. Anyway, I think we should, before we jump into it, if you've got any questions for next week, feel free to put them in the comments below. But without further ado, let's jump in to question 1. Right then. Atul asks, where do you think Daniel Ricciardo, the honey badger himself, will be in 2021? This was a question that I had to include, mainly because firstly, it's an awesome question, and we've not spoke about it for a little while, but also, a hell of a lot of you were asking this question. It's not normal that we get more than one person asking the same question, but I think about 3 or 4 of you asked it. So, it's question 1 in today's video. Danny Rick, I've said a few times now on this channel, over on the F1 Word, I believe I've even said it with Chainbear as well when I did my mid-season preview thing with him. I think Ricciardo is almost being a placeholder at Renault. And what I mean by that is, he's got 2 years at Renault and then it's 2021. So this season 2019, 2020 and then 2021. So I think if you looked at how the driver market was shaping up at the end of last year, I think Ricciardo analysed his options, that Charles Leclerc was going to Ferrari, that Max Verstappen was starting to really become the figurehead of Red Bull. I mean, he definitely is now. And Bottas was staying at Mercedes. So I think for Ricciardo, he was thinking, oh, well, if I stay at Red Bull, that could potentially hurt my career if Verstappen overtakes me. It also might hurt my chances of jumping to a team like Ferrari, jumping to a team like Mercedes in 2021. Getting out of a team like Red Bull is much more difficult than a team that's struggling at the back of the grid and you're really proving your talent. So I think Ricciardo made the backward step to Renault, first of all, because then he's in the the driving line, if you want to put it that way. If Renault are really quick in 2021, he's already there. He took the risk, he took the chance, and it paid off. But also, if at the end of 2020, he's still not happy with the team, I personally think teams like Ferrari, teams like Mercedes, potentially will be looking at a little switch up in their driver lineup. Hamilton, Vettel, will they want to stay in Formula 1? Will Mercedes still be keen on keeping Bottas? And will the likes of Ocon and Russell be ready to jump up to Mercedes? I'm not too sure just yet. So I think that was Ricciardo's rationale in his head. Don't get me wrong. He was at Red Bull for a very long time. I believe him in that he wanted a new challenge. I also believe in the many reports saying the main reason he left was the Max Verstappen factor. The Max factor, if you will. Don't get me wrong. That's a very valid reason to leave. And I think this year Ricciardo, especially in Singapore, okay, he didn't get points in the end, but I think has proved he's really racy. He is one of the best in that midfield, a question that we asked a couple of weeks ago in the mailbox, in fact. A lot of you said in the comments in our audience participation question that Ricciardo is still the best guy in that midfield. And I would agree with you. I still think he's just got that edge, and I definitely think he's World Championship material. Where he's going to be in 2021, I think that all depends on who retires. I really do. I think if Sebastian Vettel retires, Ferrari will snatch him up in an instant because there's no way, I mean, judging his performances so far in 2019, I don't think Giovinazzi's quite Ferrari standard, and I don't think Schumacher will be ready. So I think Ferrari will be his best bet if Vettel leaves. However, if not, I don't think Renault's an awful place to be in 2021. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Moving on to question 2, James Booth. I think James Booth, not Booth, Apologies if I got it wrong. I usually get one wrong, or at least one wrong. Really good question anyway. With Haas turning Wehrlein down for 2020 due to a lack of experience, has he now run out of time to make a return to Formula 1? Love this question. James, you're an absolute hero, mainly because I think you all know I'm a big fan of Pascal Wehrlein. I was definitely one of those people out there saying he deserved a chance in Formula 1 and was really surprised when he didn't get the call ahead of Ocon. And that after that year with Sauber, he was dropped from Formula 1 completely. Mercedes dropped him from their young driver programme, which, to be fair, with the likes of Russell coming through and Ocon proving himself, I can understand why, but I still felt and still do feel that Wehrlein has enough talent to be in Formula 1. I'm surprised Haas have kept both of their drivers. I've said this for quite some time now. I feel that there should have been a change. Whether that was bringing in Hülkenberg, whether that was a complete driver lineup switch, I personally felt that was the way to go. Because I feel, and still I do believe this, first of all, I think the biggest thing they need now is a bit of a refresh, a bit of a detox. Just move on Grosjean, as much as I love him. Move on K-Mag, just have a complete fresh start, because I think both of them this year haven't been great. With that being said, that car has been rubbish, so it's difficult to really blame the drivers. So, if he's not going to Haas, where could he go? Well, for 2020, there's still a potential seat open at Alfa Romeo. If Giovinazzi doesn't perform at the end of the year, then maybe he could move there. I think if Giovinazzi didn't do great and Schumacher, well, especially for next year, I don't think Schumacher's ready for Formula 1. I think if Giovinazzi struggles in the second half of the year, I think Wehrlein potentially would be in with a shout. Of course, Alfa Romeo Sauber used to be Sauber, so that makes sense for him to go there. But apart from that, I think you're right. I think he really has run out of time now. And yes, we've seen drivers like Kubica have a giant gap in their career and return to Formula 1. And I think if Wehrlein can continue to perform like he did last year in Formula E and potentially win the title, then maybe Formula 1 teams might look at him and think, yeah, let's have him back. But to be honest with you, I kind of agree with what you're saying. I really think Haas was his best option for 2020. Gunther Steiner has made it clear that there were talks involved. But like you say, that experience, they felt they needed more, which still baffles me a little bit why they didn't hire Hülkenberg. That's a topic for today's later video, so keep an eye out for that. But Pascal, time's running out. But never say never. And also, there's still opportunities for next year in 2021. If Grosjean and Magnussen both don't perform, what's to say Hülkenberg and Wehrlein aren't the lineup in 2021? It's always a possibility. So never say never, but it's not looking good. And thank you, James, for that question. Jasper is up next with question 3. Will there be a new constructor in Formula 1 in 2021? I think a lot of people would absolutely love a new constructor, or just a new team in general in Formula 1 in 2021. Our last new team, technically, was Haas and Renault, both in 2016. Haas came in as a completely new team. Renault came in taking over the Enstone team, that was Lotus. So a completely new constructor and team we've not seen for a while in Formula. I was actually thinking about it. Racing Point would be our most new team. But let's be honest, Alfa Romeo likewise, they're not really new teams, are they? So a completely brand new team, is it possible? Well, I think 2021 is definitely a brilliant chance for a new team to jump into Formula 1. The FIA, along with Liberty Media, are really trying to make Formula 1 more affordable, but also more sustainable as a sport. So I think if a team is going to jump in at any point, best to do it in 2021 rather than 22 or 23, because you're right there with development. That being said, if a team wants to jump in 2021, they're going to have to get their skates on and start planning now, because already all 10 teams on the Formula 1 grid will be starting to work out their plans for 21. So, I don't think a new manufacturer will make the jump to Formula 1. We've seen at the moment, and I know a lot of you really don't want to hear this, and a lot of you will feel this is bad news, but Formula E is the place to go. We've seen Porsche jump over there now. Mercedes, of course, the team on screen. This is the footage I was talking about at the beginning. They've made the jump to Formula E. Last week we spoke about the possibility of Ferrari going to Formula E. And while you can argue that eventually Formula 1 will go electric, we definitely will cover this over the winter, whether Formula 1 and Formula E will merge. That's not the topic of today. But Formula 1, even if it did go electric, maybe teams would still stay in Formula E because it would have that pedigree of electric racing. I don't know. I think Formula 1 eventually will go electric. So maybe that will attract brands like Porsche, like Audi. I believe in the pipeline at the moment, there is a team called, and again, I'm sorry for pronunciation, but Panthera? Oh, and yes, apologies, I say Porsche, not Porsche. Some people get really wound up by that, but that's my accent, I'm afraid. Well, that's what I'm blaming it on anyway. But Panthera, again, correct me, I believe they were a WEC team. They're poking their noses around just a little bit for a team in 2021. And to be honest with you, I would love an extra team. We've seen this year, we've spoke about it already today. Drivers like Wehrlein, drivers even like Ocon this year, drivers, let's even say it, Sergei Sorokin, Pascal Wehrlein should have a chance in Formula 1. So I'd love to see a new team, but they're going to have to really get their skates on if they want to get on the grid by 2021. Isaac Riley asks, what do you think about the Xtreme E driver program? I'll be honest, Isaac, I didn't really know a fat lot, and I've put stuff out on Xtreme E on my channel because I'm still a little bit sceptical about the series. I can't deny that. However, I like where they're going. I like the morals behind it. I like the fact it's the race for the planet and they're really trying to emphasise global warming and that kind of thing. I quite like the idea. That being said, and I'm really sorry for this, some of you are going to hate me for this, my knowledge outside of Formula 1 and Formula E, let's just say it's pretty pants. So a lot of these drivers, I don't really know who they are. So apologies, I don't mean to be disrespectful there. However, there are quite a few names that I am aware of. Jamie Chadwick, first ever winner of the W Series. We've got Catherine Legg, who raced in Formula E and last season's Jaguar I-Pace E Trophy. Lucas de Grassi, Formula E driver. Andre Lotterer, Formula E driver. We also have Sasha Prost, and I don't know if that's any relation to Alain Prost. Bruno Senna, former Formula 1 driver, Formula E driver, and I believe is in the WEC at the moment. There's a driver here that I probably should know, Sebastian Ogier, I'm going to say is how you pronounce it, in the WRC. But also, we've got teams Venturi HWA and Veloce, the esports team. That's awesome that an esports team is moving over to Xtreme E and becoming a full-time racing team. That is incredible. And they have signed Jean-Eric Vergne and also have Adrian Newey on board. So, yeah, there's some good talent there. And for a first season, I think that's rather quite impressive. Final question, and as always, our last question. I want to know your thoughts or your answer in the comments below. Comes from mostly an F1 fan. Come on, man. We need some Formula E in there as well. When did you start watching the sport? So, Formula 1. What was the first race you remember watching? So, first of all, I'll get it out of the way. Cannot remember my first ever Formula E race, so we'll throw that out the window completely. Apologies, people who are here for Formula E, but Formula 1, which I'm guessing why most of you are here, that's usually the case. Put it this way, it was a long time ago. I cannot remember the very, very first race I ever watched. I've said before, I did it in my 5,000 subscriber special. Good video that one is, actually. I spoke about how I got into Formula 1 and whatnot. The first ever race I remember, and I vividly remember jumping around the TV screaming, was Hungary 2006. If you don't know about that race, Jenson Button's first ever race win. Vividly remember that one. The rain, Schumacher either having a mistake or... I remember Button taking the lead, remember Button winning. That one is the one that sticks out in my mind. But I also remember vividly supporting the yellow cars, the yellow team, which now I'm older, I understand is Jordan, but when you're 5, 6 years old, you just assume it's the yellow team. So, yes, Hungary 2006 is the first one I remember. So I usually tell people I've been watching since 2006 because, to be honest with you, before then, I can't remember a fat lot. But of course, I've left it open to you guys. What was the first ever race you saw? What was your earliest Formula 1 memory? As always, if you want to post your questions for next week's episode, feel free to put them in the comments below. Another video coming out a little bit later on this evening, so keep an eye out for that one. As always, thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you are new, and I hope to see you in the next one.